Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad.
It was New Year's Eve of 2016. My girlfriend and I were hosting a party in my condo. As we were setting things up for the party, we kept losing things and then finding them back in the same place a few minutes later, like the TV remote, her bag, or just anything we seemed to need at the moment. We thought we were just imagining it, but it kept happening over and over. We figured it was the two of us just accidentally moving stuff without the other knowing. Our guests started pouring in around 9. Since my friends would be bringing friends, I positioned some of my surveillance cameras in rooms with valuables such as the living room and the bedrooms. By the time everyone was over, things were still kind of disappearing. Like at one point, I wanted to show my friends my new pair of shoes my girlfriend got me for Christmas, and I couldn't find them. The condo was crowded and I didn't have much time to be worrying about this stuff, so I told myself I'd check the surveillance footage after the party. There were a handful of faces I didn't recognize, but I met most of them through whichever friends brought them over. That time of the night that people either can't wait for or dread finally came, and we all started to gather around the TV to watch the ball drop in Times Square. I looked around the room and noticed some tall guy in a black trench coat facing the wall, opposite the TV. He was looking down at the couch doing something. I was about to ask my friend Alan if he knew who that was, but everyone started counting down, so I turned my attention to that and joined in. Everyone yelled Happy New Year and all that, and anyone who came as a couple got their New Year's kiss, and when everyone settled down a bit, I realized that the tall guy wasn't in the room anymore. I asked Alan if he knew who that tall guy was, and he said, yeah, that's Tom's friend. Eventually the clock hit 2 a.m. and that's when things were dwindling down and people were starting to make their exits. When everyone was gone, my girlfriend and I said we'd clean up tomorrow. However, we did a quick inspection to make sure nothing was stolen. Her bag was gone completely this time, and so was one of my expensive watches. I rushed to our bedroom to pause the video cameras so I could download the footage and play it back. We started watching for the time guests started to arrive. I had it on fast forward and we just skimmed all 3 cameras. Eventually we noticed Tom's friend in the trench coat in the guest bedroom going through our stuff. I paused the footage in a fit of rage. I cut the footage to a 30-second clip and sent it to my phone, and then texted Tom immediately. Tom had no idea who the guy was. My girlfriend and I got nervous now, so I started texting all my friends who came asking if they knew that person. From everyone who was still awake, we got a bunch of no's, so we went to finish the video footage following the guy in the trench coat. He made his way into our bedroom, opened the door, then started dropping some of our belongings out the window, including my girlfriend's bag. I felt like the room was spinning and my heart was in my throat. Then the man in the video quickly turned around as if he heard someone coming up the stairs, and he crawled under the bed. We sped through the rest of the video footage, but he never got out from under the bed that we were currently sitting on using the laptop. I saw the fear of my girlfriend's eyes and her temptation to scream, but I covered her mouth with my hand, but she couldn't help and let out a cry, so I had to yell at her to just run out of the room. I pushed her off the bed and followed close behind. I took a look under the bed before slamming the door shut, and I saw him down there. It was an indescribable moment. We called the cops, both grabbing big kitchen knives. Police made it in like 3 minutes, but by that time the intruder was gone and our bedroom window was once again open. He escaped through the window and got away with our belongings. I handed over the video footage files to the police department, and they would review it and record an image of the man's face. Of course, he was never found, at least not by our local police department. This happened almost 4 years ago in the early hours of New Year's Day. For reference, I was 17 at the time and in my senior year of high school. I lived in the suburbs and I was at a New Year's party being held by my friend at his house, which was a 20-minute walk away from my house. It was about 1 in the morning, and I was about to leave with another friend of mine who lived on the same block as me. My friend who was hosting the party asked if we would like a ride home, and in hindsight, we probably should have accepted his offer, but our neighborhood was pretty safe and we figured that with the two of us walking together, no one would bother us. The road was predictably empty with no one but us walking along the sidewalk and maybe the occasional car passing by. It was pretty well lit though, so we weren't walking in complete darkness. My friend wanted to pick up a pack of cigarettes on the way home, so we stopped off at a gas station along the way. When we got to the gas station, it was nearly empty with only a woman at a pump filling up her car with gas and a guy posted up in front of the store on his phone. We went inside and my friend picked up a pack of cigarettes. We reached the sidewalk and we hear someone behind us yell. We looked behind us to see the guy who was in front of the store quickly walking towards us. He looked to be in his early to mid-20s. We began walking away when the guy continued to follow us, asking where we were going. We told him we were heading home and asked him where he was going. He said his friends were at a party and he was heading back over there as he left to get some fresh air for a bit. He asked us if we wanted to come to the party. This is officially the point where red flags start going off with this guy. Why the hell would a guy in his 20s ask two teenage boys if they wanted to go to a party with him? We told him bluntly that we didn't even know who he was, nor did we know anyone at the party he was talking about, so we weren't going. He starts laughing and says that we seemed like cool guys to party with. He told us we needed to let loose a little. My friend and I told him we were 18 and 17 respectively to see if maybe that would get him to leave us alone. He chuckled and said that age didn't matter to him and that he had a brother who was 16 and that he partied with him and his friends all the time. We were a little less than 10 minutes away from our houses and we didn't want this creep following us all the way there. We both agreed that he was probably drunk or high from a New Year's party. Next thing we know, we hear a car behind us and proceed to slow down to match our pace. We see the windows rolled down, which revealed the guy we had just seen a few minutes earlier with two of his friends, one of which was a man who was probably the same age as the guy and a woman in the back seat who had to have been in her mid-30s. The guy tells us that we got off on the wrong foot and asked us once again to join them at the party. My friend and I looked at each other and I whispered to him that we needed to get away from them. My friend tells them that we're not going with them and to leave us alone already. They pull over and quickly get out of the car, which caused my friend and I to immediately go into flight mode. We looked behind us and to our horror, the three people were running right for us. We run into the park and we once again look behind us and they're getting closer. We run into the dark, thick patch of trees that covered a good portion of the west side of the park, hoping to evade them. I was panicking at this point because I couldn't see a damn thing and I was worried that my friend and I would trip over something and get captured by one of those sick freaks who wanted to do who knows what with us. We heard yelling behind us and one of the guys said that they lost us. The woman yells to split up and search around the park for us. We bolt toward the bathrooms, which thankfully were open, and we hide inside. We took a minute to catch our breath as our lungs were practically burning at that point. We should have called the cops and just hid until they got there, but at the time we were so focused on getting the hell away from those crazy people that we decided to try and make our way to the nearest exit out of the park and run to my house. We waited for about 2 minutes and we bolted out of the bathroom and toward the park exit. Shortly before we exited the park, we heard one of the guys yell behind us that he found us and we were getting away. We looked behind us to see the guy in the distance starting to chase after us. We ran until we reached my house. We went into my living room and collapsed on the couch. We both sat there silently, trying to regain our energy and calm down after what had happened. I looked out the window several times over the course of 10 minutes and thankfully, they never showed up again. We talked about it and we were glad that we were both okay and that nothing bad happened to us. We were trying to figure out what they wanted with us. Did they want to kill us, rob us? God only knows. This happened in the New Year's Eve of 2000. I was home alone since my mother was currently out of state. Now this didn't worry me, as this was not the first time. I often came home to find a note on the kitchen counter saying they had gone to Florida for a few days and that there were groceries in the fridge. We lived on a relatively quiet road surrounded by trees and set a few miles out of town. On the night in question, I was staying up late watching television. As I was watching the movie, I kept hearing these weird sounds outside, but I remember thinking it was probably the neighbors. About halfway into the movie, however, the power in the house suddenly went dead. I sat on the couch for a minute, just sort of in a panic daze, because it was near midnight and pitch black. I remember thinking the power must have gone out and that it would come back on, so I just decided to sit on the couch with my blanket and wait. A few minutes passed by when I heard a noise in the kitchen, where the back door is. My heart started racing in my chest, because I thought it sounded like the back door being shut. The back door sits just off the dining room, which is connected to the kitchen, which leads directly into the living room, where I was currently sitting on the couch. As I was straining my ears to pick up anything that wasn't supposed to be there, every noise suddenly felt magnified. When footsteps sounded on the floor, I immediately slithered off the couch onto all fours, crawled around the ottoman, and started as slowly and as quietly as I could make my way toward the space between the love seat and the couch. I knew I could fit under the side table and be completely hidden by the dark and the ottoman. I was nearly there when the footsteps became more apparent. I knew from the sound of them that whoever it was making their way through the kitchen now toward the living room. They weren't hurried or anything, it was like they were just moving around in the kitchen. I glanced up from where I was crouched on the floor, and to my horror there was a dark silhouette standing in the archway between the two rooms. To my credit, I didn't scream, however I did panic. I stood immediately to my feet from my hiding spot, and ran down the hallway, and I believe the only reason I wasn't overcome was because the person chasing me had to get around the ottoman in the dark to follow me. I did what all children do when they're afraid. I ran to my room. So as I ran into the room, I slammed the door shut and locked it. However, the lock was simply one of those little turn knobs that you can easily pop with a butter knife. I had barely gotten the door shut and locked when the person on the other side knocked on it. I have no idea why they knocked, if they did it to mock me or to scare me, but I knew in my heart that my little lock was not going to keep whoever it was on the other side out of my room. I was panicking, on the verge of tears when the person started laughing. It was low, quiet, and because of that it was even more frightening. It wasn't like manic laughter, but as if they were genuinely amused. It was the laughter that really frightened me, and I started heavily, hysterically crying and looking around my room to figure out what I could do. Terrified, I crawled under my bed and waited. Several minutes passed and the person eventually stopped attacking my door. I thought about trying to go out the window, but I was afraid he might expect it and therefore be waiting for me on the other side, and it was also several feet off the ground. I remember laying under my bed, terrified, for what felt like hours. I must have fallen asleep because I awoke the next morning. The fear of what happened came back to me as soon as I registered where I was. I decided to crawl out the window and run to a neighbor. I carefully made my way around the house, and that's when I noticed that the back door was wide open. I walked up the back steps and peered inside. Seeing nothing out of the ordinary, I decided to go inside. I did a terrifying, heart-pounding room-to-room check, looking in closets and under beds, behind the couch, anywhere I thought even a small child might be able to fit. When I was positive there was no one there, I went back to lock the back door and noticed that the breaker box on the opposite wall was open. The main switch had been pulled. I flipped it back on, locked both locks on the back door, checked all the windows and front door, and then called my mom. She called a coworker, who came and stayed the entire day with me. If you enjoyed your time here, please consider leaving a like on this video and subscribe to FearLore. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the comments section below. Thank you for watching.